In this video, we'll set up some optional software packages and configuration on your PiTrac. None of these are necessary, but they are things that, especially if you're a new user, you may want to install and play around with and see if you like some of these techniques. They can come in handy both for PiTrac and other projects. There are a number of things that just make life easier, especially if you're doing development with PiTrac and not just simply being an end user. And I'm going to do some of those things to the new PiTrac that I'm building right now. If you go to the PiTrac Quick Start document and then pull down software and pull down the Raspberry Pi setup list of documents, there's an advanced configuration document. We're going to do a few things here. At some point I'm going to add an NVMe drive to speed things up, but for right now I just want to get my Pi better connected to the rest of our network. So if you scroll down to NAS drive mounting, I'm going to mount my home server, one of my home server drives, onto the Pi, and that is going to help it in a number of ways. First of all, I can transfer files more easily, often to and from the Pi from other places in my lab here, and it's also safer because I can put all the files and work that I do on my NAS drive, and if for some reason the Pi tanks, well, the files are on my NAS where they're backed up, as opposed to on the Pi where generally they are not. So let's do this right now. We're going to create a mount point, and I'm just going to cut and paste these commands into a secure shell on my Pi. And we're going to, actually I'm not going to use nano, I'm going to use VI because I'm better with that. So sudo vi fs tab. This is a file system table that tells the system what it needs to add in terms of available drives. So we are going to add a line here at the end. Just add a line here to tell the system to mount from one of the servers here. Actually, I don't need a password. I forgot this drive is actually open. So we're going to save that, and then we, according to our documentation here, we need to do these two things. Not sure why that didn't work the first time, but now if we look at our mount point, we should see a bunch of files, and we do. Alright, so now we can move files back and forth, like for instance security keys and things like that. We can move those from our server to our machine. The other thing we want to be able to do is set up what's called a Samba server. What I want to be able to do is look at parts of the Pi as a Windows drive, and that's useful, for instance, for things like looking at output image files and stuff like that from your Windows machine or from a Mac machine. So we're going to do that right now. Now, looking here in terms of creating a shared directory, we already have this directory because PiTrac will have created it in order to store the logged image files. So really all we need to do is just configure Samba to look at that directory. So we're going to do that right now. this at the bottom of the file. This share is going to be called LM shares. So on a Windows machine, what we'll see is that you'll be able to add a network location called LM shares to this machine, and you'll be able to see everything under the home LM shares directory. Our PiTrac username is just PiTrac. So we've created that. We're going to set our password. For the share. All right, we're going to restart Samba. And at this point, if we go to our home directory, LM shares images, where it happens that there is a single file right now we can look at, we should then be able to go to that directory. And I'm going to try this right now in Windows. Run ifconfig, which will remind me what our IP address here is, which is 10.0.0.64. Then we're going to go to this PC, and we are going to add a network location. So if we type that location. Whoops. Need to do 2 backslashes at the front. In Windows, Mac has a similar method for adding a network address. So let's do that. Okay, we're going to need to log in the first time into the Pi. And this will be the same password that you told Samba to use. And we now have an ability go to that shared drive, and sure enough, we can see the same file here that we could see from inside of our Unix prompt. So let's just see what this looks like. It's very washed out. We can fix that. In any case, that's how you hook up Samba. I tend to also do a couple things to the shell on the Pi that just make it a little easier for me. For instance, I usually install a newer version of the VI editor, and it's called Vim, V-I-M. I also tend to use Z Shell with some additional add-ons. You know, look around on the internet, see what you like. You can get better sort of shortcuts added and things like that. There are a few other things that I like to do to customize my desktop. I mean, there's a million Linux utilities out there that all work on Raspberry Pi. One of the things I do to just make it easier to log in is to set up my PuTTY application with a security key so that I don't have to type in the password and log in every time I want to log into my Pi. To do that, I am going to install some keys under a .ssh subdirectory, and when I do that, I'll be able to set up PuTTY to use a local key instead of having me log in every time to the machine. So I'm going to do that right now. You can see here I'm already using my shared network drive where I have these authorized keys pre-generated from the PuTTY program. Now that I've done that, what I can do is I can set up PuTTY in a way that doesn't require a login. Another thing I tend to do is install a different editor called NeoVim. I'm going to do that right now here. NeoVim just has some neat add-on modules and things like that that are useful if you're doing a lot of editing inside of VI. I also tend to use Microsoft Visual Studio on a Windows machine, and then I point that machine to the Pi so that I can work in a more sort of easy-to-use GUI environment in my Windows system. I also tend to set up a Z shell, which is a alternative shell to Bash. We're going to do that right now. Again, none of these things are necessary for anyone to do. They're just things that if you're perhaps a new user to Linux, you might find useful. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my etc. password file and tell the system to use Z shell instead of BA bash shell. Here's the PiTrac user. I'm just going to change this to Z shell. Make sure I gave the right location. That looks good. And if you're using Z shell will do some nice things for you. For instance, it'll tell you what GitHub branch you're working in. It integrates pretty well with the Git tools, but in order to do that, you usually need to do the following commands. You need to actually be in your PiTrac GitHub directory, so let's try that again. Okay, one more time. All right, if you look in your at this point, I'm going to log out, log back in to start using Z shell. And I am ready to start working on my PiTrac project.